The TV shop that made a lot of money is now a graveyard for lost hopes. The star who built the company had to pay $6 million claim from his two business partners. His right-hand man gave up under the stress and went into debt for $750,000 after a strange fire destroyed everything. The woman who worked at the front desk disappeared without a trace, hiding a terrible diagnosis. Painters left in such a quiet way that fans didn't know for months. Someone else's store was ripped off by someone he trusted. What looked like a success on screen was a disaster in slow motion behind the scenes. Hey, Richard Rawlings. There was no fame for Richard Rawlings at first. He put it together one engine at a time. When he opened Gas Monkey Garage for the first time in 2002, it was just another custom shop in Texas. But things went off the rails 10 years later. Everything changed when Fast and Loud came out on Discovery Channel in 2012. There were other things Rawlings did besides fixing cars. He was making a name for himself, and it was fast, loud, and everywhere. Millions of people watched the show for more than 10 years, which made him a famous businessman. Behind the smoke and roar of the engines, though, his world wasn't always safe. In 2018, trouble started in his own camp. He was sued for $6 million by his partners at Gas Monkey Bar and Grill, who said he had slandered them and broken their contract. It took years for the case to end. Documents for the courts kept piling up while the cameras kept running. That didn't make Rawlings give up. They were sued back, and he said they were misusing the Gas Monkey name. Both sides ended their relationship in August 2021. The name of the place changed to Amplified Live. The name Gas Monkey was no longer on the venue. That was the end of a part of his business. Rawlings didn't slow down, though. His net worth was around $25 million by 2025. Not just from the TV checks or the garage. He was in other business. There is Gas Monkey Sturgis in South Dakota and the brand new Gas Monkey Ice House, which opened in May 2025 just north of Dallas. Crazy custom cars are still being made in the shed. His YouTube channel posts new material every week. There are still fans who watch, buy, and cheer. In 2024, he made news again when he paid about $100,000 at Barrett-Jackson for a Ring Brothers-built Detomaso Pantera. That car wasn't just pricey, it was also hard to find. It also showed that Rawlings was still very good at making expensive cars. He wasn't just a name. He was still buying things and building things. He was still crazy about tools that make noise and make news. But it hasn't been a smooth ride. There were fails. In one episode, he lost money when a C10 pickup he fixed up sold for less than what he paid for it. It was all on his face. Some people feel shocked, let down, and even regretful. People have fought over patents, said that he sells fake goods, and talked behind his back about how he treats some of his business partners. There are still problems, but he hasn't stopped. Mr. Aaron Kaufman. He didn't want to be famous. Aaron Kaufman only cared about making things that worked. However, when Fast and Loud hit TV, he turned into more than just a mechanic. He turned into the beard behind the brand and the quiet storm under Gas Monkey Garage. People loved him because he stayed cool even when everything else was going crazy around him. There was no longer any peace. From the first season on, he was treated like a machine. 12 cars in 24 weeks, or 110 hours a week. He would sometimes fall asleep in the cars he was working on, and the cameras didn't even notice. He had to drive 14 hours a week to get to work, where there were screaming sparks, pressure, and schedules. People saw cool cars in shots that moved slowly. He saw people have panic attacks and collapse. He had surgery once and shot 3 days afterward. That was not commitment. That was staying alive. 2017 was the worst year. They were building trucks quickly. Aaron pointed out real safety issues, but Richard Rawlings wanted to make a scene. He still wanted the risky test drive. The truck almost broke down. Because Aaron saw it happen, he knew what could have gone wrong. It was no longer just about cars. It was about putting lives at risk for TV. That was it for him. That's when he understood he didn't own the show. Not his looks, not his business, not even his builds. After the fact, he said it felt like a jail for creativity. He worked on making it look real for years, but it wasn't his. People thought he was making millions, but each show only brought in $35,000. Fans bought stuff with his face on it, but he was actually teaching someone else behind their back. He only wrote one quiet message on Facebook in March 2017. He was leaving Gas Monkey right then. Fans were shocked. Behind the scenes, though, he was already gone. He said it seemed like 20 years had passed in 5 years. There wasn't a clean break after that. It all fell apart. Suits came down. He had health problems. His earnings got worse. He opened a new store called Arclight Fabrication with the goal of making something honest this time. Then there was a fire. Bad wiring. He saved money by doing it himself. To pay his bills, he had to sell his 1963 Ford Falcon. He borrowed $750,000 and lost it. He didn't stop, though. Someone stepped in with $400,000, which kept the doors open, the lights on, and the dream living. Hey, Christie Brimberry. And in 2012, Christie Brimberry went into Gas Monkey Garage because her husband did hair for Richard Rawlings. Everything changed when that strange link happened. Richard wasn't in need of another auto repair. He needed someone who could keep the whole business from blowing up, handle invoices, find parts, manage salaries, clear the desk, and calm storms. Christie said yes, sat down at the front desk, and became the rock in a shop full of testosterone, oil, and fire. She wasn't just hiding behind a screen. Christie was in charge. She worked with different build plans, kept the books in order, and kept track of every car deal Rawlings made. If someone got in her way, she would fight them. She stood her ground in a place where yelling was normal and meeting deadlines meant death. She filmed 55 episodes of Fast and Loud. Most of the fans came to see the cars, but many stayed to see Christie's funny lines and raised eyebrows. She wasn't background. She stood strong. But then she went without a trace. Fans took notice. It was quiet in the front desk. More Instagram posts took longer to come in. The reason wasn't known until 2017, when the truth came out. In 2016, Christie was in the middle of shooting when she got sick. It changed her whole life. Breast cancer. It was easy to get the diagnosis. The surgery did the same thing. Doctors had to do an emergency surgery that could have hurt her vocal cords and made it hard for her to speak for weeks. Then there was radiation, and then there was quiet. She didn't write. She wasn't there. The fight was between her and herself. Fans already knew what had happened because she was well on her way to getting better. The hair began to grow back. Her voice changed too. And Christie was said to be cancer-free by the end of 2021. But the garage part was over. She never went back to Gas Monkey the same way. The show went on without her. She didn't just disappear, though. She changed the plot. She turned her attention to something else. She made a whole new online profile with the help of her husband, Darren Brimberry. Over 1 million people follow her, not because of bids or engines, but because they saw the same fire she had in the garage, but this time in yoga pants or selfies at the airport. Sue Martin. Sue Martin ran ASM Automotive Upholstery in Dallas without any attention for more than 20 years, long before anyone from TV ever came in. The old way is how she made her name. He became known in the area for repairing broken down seats and putting them back together piece by piece. Sue always came through, whether it was an old, rusty Cadillac or a brand new, high-end build. Her name started to get around the Dallas car scene like a well-kept secret among gearheads and restorers. That's how Richard Rawlings learnt about her. In 2012, he showed up eager to get work done quickly. She not only took it, she hit it. The team of Fast and Loud knew they had something special when they saw her work. Sue was unique in more ways than one. The way she talked was strange. They didn't use sugar or a fake TV smile. Instead, they had grit, wit, and a signature line that people remembered the first time they heard it. Why do you bring me trash? Someone else didn't write it. Sue was just being herself. So it was impossible to forget. She wasn't pretending to be someone else. She did her job the same way on camera as she did off camera. She worked late, long hours, and sometimes slept in her shop to meet goals. Fans never saw how often the crew had to stop her work to move the lights or make her do something again for the camera. Even though she didn't like that part, she never let it affect the product. She kept the same high standards. They only got better. That being said, not everything was nice behind the scenes. In season 3, a big job went wrong. Not because of her work, but because of what other people did wrong in the garage. Sue didn't take the blame, and she didn't act like it was okay. The tension she created with the team wasn't just for show. It was true. She later said she didn't like a lot of the ways the gas monkey worked. She had a good reason. This wasn't just a TV show to her. It was her name, her store, and her honor. It had to be perfect all the way through. Every job had to be clean. That's why she didn't smile when other people did things that made her look bad. She fought back. She never got a big exit on the show. There was no public farewell. But people who worked on the show said it was because of money. Sue wasn't paid to be on the show. She ran a business. And Gas Monkey stopped calling her when it was no longer profitable to pay her what she was worth. She kept going after that. Her shop kept getting bigger after the show. The phone kept going off. It was more important than ever to have her name. She wasn't on TV because people wanted her, but because she never changed how she worked because she was on TV. Mike Coy. Mike Coy got his first job working on cars when he was only 15. He didn't do it for fame, but because he couldn't imagine doing anything else. That was in 1992. He had his own hot rod shop in Texas called Texas Street Rods by the time he was 20. Every paint job had to be perfect or the car didn't leave the shop. It was noticed, and media wrote about it. He got awards from SEMA. That's how Sharple's friend Richard found him. Rawlings brought Coy to Gas Monkey Garage in 2014. Fast and Loud was already a big hit on Discovery. The cars changed, though, when Coy's steady hands started adding color. They weren't just quick anymore. They began to look expensive. The show's look was defined by Coy's paint. That 1949 Chevy 3100. It was sold for six figures and later became worth twice as much. Fans knew it wasn't possible to fake that level of skill. Coy worked on almost every car that left the shop from 2014 to 2017. He did more than just shine cars, though. He was becoming a brand. That business also had rules. Fans were shocked when Coy quit in 2017. At its height, the show had more than 130 episodes, but no one saw how hard things were behind the scenes. Discovery had contracts that couldn't be broken. In the end, Coy admitted that he couldn't even post pictures of his cars on his own social media accounts without permission. His work, his name, and the tools he uses are all tied to company rights. It was like being squished for someone who made a name for himself in small shops. After that, there was quiet. His life went through a lot of trouble after he left the press. He lost his wife. His health got worse. His weight loss was so noticeable that friends began to talk about cancer. He never said anything official in public. And maybe that was the point. He didn't want to say anything. Leaving the Dallas glitz behind, he went to El Paso and began from scratch. There was no news or tweets, just painting and peace. That was all for years. Then 2024 came out of nowhere. Netflix added a new show called Tex-Mex Motors. Mike Coy is in the middle of it. Same hands, same toughness, and no fake drama. It was all about real builds. Border town stories and real car culture. In the US and UK, the show went straight to the top 10. He wasn't just remembered, he was missed. KC grown up. Most people saw fast cars, loud engines, and a crazy yard full of drama when Fast and Loud first started in 2012. Still, There was a man in the background who was quiet and had a paint gun in his hand. He looked very careful. It wasn't loud for Casey Mature to get your attention. He didn't need to. His work was more powerful than any engine. There was no doubt from the start that Gas Monkey Garage would shine through the smooth, shiny finishes he sprayed with cool confidence. Casey was already deeply involved in this world a long time before TV cameras came along. He grew up in Crowley, Texas, and began painting cars in his dad's auto shop when he was only 12 years old. He was learning how to draw straight lines under bright lights and the Texas heat while other kids played video games or hung out. He still remembers that early work. Before Richard Rawlings walked in with big plans, big money, and big cameras, Casey had already made a name for himself. In Texas, he was known for painting jobs that were so clean they almost looked fake. He owned Casey's paint shop. Richard wasn't dumb. Those kinds of people helped him. Since this was the case, Casey was brought in not only to paint, but also to make everything better. He went from being a guest painter to the main guy that everyone trusted to add the finishing touch very quickly. As the show got bigger, the stress level rose. During their lunch breaks, people began to queue outside the garage. Casey could hardly go run some errands without being stopped by fans of the team for pictures. The builds got more crazy. There were fewer days to do things. The cams picked up everything all the time. It went from being a love of craft to a never-ending race with no room to breathe. Casey never tried to be famous. He stepped away when the lights got too bright. In October 2015, he just walked away. There was no big scene, no yelling fight, and no crying goodbye. Not because they were mad, but because they were tired. Being on set all the time for 3.5 years had worn him out. He wished for peace. He longed to spend time with his family. He was ready to paint again on his own terms. When the exit came around, most TV stars were gone. Casey didn't. He just changed his mind. He opened Casey's paint shop again, moved it to a bigger warehouse, and slowly put together a new team. He was no longer the only one in a corner with a spray gun. His shop grew to have 9 workers who did more than just paint. They also made books, made things, and made logos. From then on, his shop did full restorations, custom builds, and hot rod jobs for real people, not for TV. Every year, they'd do 12 work projects and 2 or 3 full builds from the ground up. And each one was done right. Not quick for scores, but carefully lovely. Hey, Scott McMillan. The attention on Scott McMillan wasn't his choice. He was brought in because he had a long-term relationship with Kaufman, not because he was related to Richard Rawlings. This was in 2012, when Fast and Loud was becoming popular. Scott was very clear about it from the start. He wasn't with Richard. He told Aaron straight out, "I don't work for Richard. I do work for you." A comment that not only caused a stir, but also shook the base. Being so honest was rare on TV, where everyone is too polite, and it let fans see what was going on behind the scenes. As soon as Misfit Garage was filmed in 2014, the stress turned into fire. Misfit Garage was meant to be a brave uprising. Together with Tom Smith and Jordan Butler, Scott formed a group. Both quit Gas Monkey Garage, and the two of them started Fired Up Garage as the main show of the spin-off. Fans couldn't take their eyes off of it because it was billed as a direct threat to Rawlings' business. But it wasn't just about cars when it wasn't being filmed. It had to do with power, direction, and differences in personalities. Scott only made it through one season. In 2015, just as the show was getting popular, there was a heated fight about how to fix up a 1967 Chevy Camaro. It wasn't a small argument. Austin, another builder, and Scott both quit in the middle of the season. No goodbyes or warnings, they were just gone. Their leaving threw the production team into chaos, and they had to rush to fill in the blanks while watchers were shocked. Scott didn't go away when the cameras stopped watching him. Instead of putting on plays, he went back to his roots and started making things. At Scott Rod's shop in Fort Worth, Texas, he fixed his name. That's where he worked on special builds that were both crazy and complicated. There were cars, hot rods, and even a pirate ship. But fired-up garage's storm never really went away. One partner at a time, the shop that was supposed to be the rebellious loser kept leaving. People who used to support the spin-off started to wonder if it would last. Scott kept going anyway. He had no big backers or flashy brand deals. He just built things with his own two hands and a strong desire to do so. He didn't want to be famous on reality TV. Few people who saw him leave will ever forget how quickly things fell apart. John Acker. Things took a whole new turn in Jason Acker's story. He wasn't after numbers or competition. He was trying to be great. Jason was already well-versed in high-end repairs long before Fast and Loud blew up. He wasn't flashy, didn't want to be in movies, and didn't need a catchphrase. But when rare builds came into Gas Monkey Garage, like old Shelbys and Mustangs, Jason was usually the one who made sure every nut and bolt fit with its place in history. The 1966 Shelby GT350, series number 001, was one of his most well-known works. It did more than just turn heads, it won the MCA Gold Cup and the Shelby American Automobile Club Premier Award, making it the Triple Crown of Classic Car Awards. That car even made it to Pebble Beach in 2012, which only lets the best cars stand on the lawn. Jason was different because he was so focused on being right. Others were rushing to meet schedules or make dramas that would be good for TV, but Jason could spend all day on one panel. He didn't think it was right to skimp. He used old instructions, plant blueprints, and stories that repair legends like John Brown and Bob Gaines had told him. When Fast and Loud finished in 2020, Jason had already left in a quiet way. There was no farewell episode or reunion, just silence. Deals with brands, YouTube, and even merch drops were turned down. He went back to Oklahoma instead, where he now runs his own shop. He only does a few builds a year, and most of them are for very wealthy fans who have heard of him. Even if it passed inspection, he's been known to redo whole parts of a car because the paint effect wasn't quite right. There isn't a big sign in front of his store. With care that you just don't see these days, rare Corvettes, Shelbys, and European classics are being brought back to life piece by piece inside. There isn't an Instagram tour. Jason doesn't need a stage. His work is the stage. Dwayne Phipps. Dwayne Phipps was working hard and had a lot of power. Before everyone knew about Gas Monkey and Fast and Loud smashed into Dallas, there was already a tech who could take your car apart while you were not looking and put it back together with muscle memory. Dwayne didn't see it on TV. His father, Larry Phipps, taught him how to do it. Larry Phipps opened Phipps Automotive in 1973, a time when fixing cars wasn't so much about fame as it was about doing it right. The shop was more than just a business. In the middle of 4 different seasons for more than 40 years, it stood like a stubborn old tree. People from the neighborhood brought in their old trucks. Gearheads had their own builds. In 2002, when Richard Rawlings opened Gas Monkey Garage next door, Dwayne was the first person to greet him. This made everyone from the garage next door come in. Instead of shaking hands like strangers, they did it like friends who knew they were going to build something big. After that, the two shops worked together like they were one. Dwayne was in charge of the dirty, quick jobs that paid the bills, like quick flips. Gas Monkey went after the video game style builds with more flash. In the background, though, Dwayne was tightening bolts, fixing panels, and getting things done behind every well-done reveal. The pain then came. Larry Phipps died in 2004 after being sick for a long time. The sadness wasn't loud. It was the kind of smell that stays in the air, lands on tools, and makes a garage feel quieter. Dwayne kept going. He made sure the doors and lights were always open and his dad's name was known. But the business world was changing. Gas Monkey was becoming a name. Discovery Channel was watching like a hawk, ready to make engines fun to watch. And in 2014, something happened that could not be fixed with a wrench. The store was closed by Dwayne after more than 10 years of running it. He didn't give up. He didn't get tired. They bought it from him. Bruce J. Holmes. Most people didn't know what to think of Russell J. Holmes when he appeared on Fast and Loud in 2019. He didn't come with a welding torch or tune-up knowledge from years of experience. His weapons were different when he came in. I've worked in building for 20 years, led crews of more than 100 people, and am naturally good at making things run smoothly. It wasn't his job to fix up power cars. It was to fix up garages that were completely destroyed, with rusted machines, leaking barrels, and hopes that were held together with duct tape. Russell did not walk when the organizers needed someone to calm down the chaos for garage rehab. He ran. There were no pre-written plans or scripted surprises. He had no idea where to begin when he walked into the store. He said, "I don't know what I'm doing until the minute I step my foot in that shop." It wasn't airs and graces. The muscles had learned that by walking into danger zones for years. As a volunteer EMT captain, there were times when I didn't want to act, which could have cost lives. He would see the broken lifts, cracked walls, and chemical spills and say, "This wall is falling. That is where the air pump goes. This is where the lift goes." It wasn't just fixing things up. It was sorting. Some people said he was just a stand-in for Aaron Kaufman, the smart guy with the beard who helped make Gazman Garage a TV empire. But Russell could never have been an alternative. He was not the same as the other tools. A strange thing is that he liked Richard Rawlings before the show even started. A post from Rawlings' team on Facebook asked for a building expert, which he saw. People told him to keep the beard even though he thought it might hold him back. That scruffy look was part of the deal. It wasn't a trick. That was him. There was no fading Russell after garage rehab was over. He went further. He fixed broken homes as well as shops on renovation impossible. Even though some projects had budgets of less than $50,000, he still found ways to make people's places look better. He also worked on Neighborhood Kickstart, where he used the same straightforward skills to bring small businesses and community buildings back to life. He did more than just put up walls and cracks in the ground. People had hoped that their lives could work again because of him.